All right, so first things first, to kick off today's cannabis-powered yet sports-driven talk show. It's hard to deny the positive effect that cannabis has had on sports in the past and sports today as we know it. Cannabis is a part of sports whether you like it or not.
The Fantasy Football Huddle, presented by the Huddle Chat Sports Show and your host, Dallas Clark, also known as Indo is my Nindo. Everybody huddle up, grab a piece of paper, and get settled in. It's just about time for the Fantasy Football Huddle, presented by the Huddle Chat Sports Show and your host, Indo is my Nindo. Let's get it started.
What is happening, baby? Welcome back to the Huddle Chat Sports Network's very own pregame live NFL kickoff show, where we discuss all of the last-minute lineup advice you might need in your fantasy football leagues. We discuss all that last-minute injury news that we might have coming down that get released 90 minutes before kickoff. And I'm trying to help you get your girls' Christmas shopping done this year with these parlays I'm going to give you at the end of the episode here today. How is everybody feeling this morning? Because I know I'm feeling fucking fantastic. The Indianapolis Colts got these Indiana Knights uniforms coming out today. We got an extremely tough matchup. And you ask why I might have so much hope as an Indianapolis Colts fan. In the last 5 seasons straight, the Indianapolis Colts have beaten the team that they weren't supposed to beat. The Chiefs in 3 of the last matchups that we've had against them with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is still yet to beat the Indianapolis Colts in his career. We're the only team besides the Chiefs that he has not beaten yet. You're looking at us beating teams like the Packers, the runners-up for the NFC Championship. You're looking at us beating teams that we haven't been supposed to beat in the last 5 years when it comes to this game right here. So I think the Indianapolis Colts are at least worth a look when you're looking at taking against the spread today. I don't think I have them in my parlay. I'm not that confident in your girls' Christmas shopping that I'm putting the Colts money line on it. But like I said, I think it's definitely worth an eye on the spread, I believe, for the Indianapolis Colts. Everybody's kind of expecting the Detroit Lions to go out to another 40-point victory like they did last week, but I just don't see that happening. I think the Colts put up a good fight today. Albeit we probably still lose at the end of it. But like I said, we've beaten the teams we weren't supposed to beat. But let's get through that, guys. We got all the information coming out of the works here that we got from all of these teams. Like I said, 90 minutes before kickoff, and we're just about there. We're actually just about past that. So we're getting all that injury information. But without further ado, everybody, let's fill up your cup, roll something up, and let's get right into the news. Starting off with this Tennessee at Houston matchup, I think the Houston Texans are going to run Becky Buck wild on the Tennessee Titans. You're looking at the Tennessee Titans being absolutely struggling lately. You're looking at Joe Mixon scoring multiple touchdowns in his last few games. I think Joe Mixon is up for a big touchdown today. You're looking at this Tennessee Titans team going to struggle to really hold back that Houston Texans offense. If the Texans don't absolutely dominate the Tennessee Titans, I might be changing how confident I am that the Houston Texans are still a tough playoff matchup this season if they don't just absolutely tallywhack the Tennessee Titans today. Moving on to the next matchup, which is going to be an interdivisional matchup. We got that Minnesota Vikings traveling to Chicago, taking on the Bears. You're looking at this Bears defense being fairly good. However, they do struggle versus the run. I think Aaron Jones is going to be in for a big game today. I think Cam Akers might get some good attention today. And I'm still starting that Minnesota Vikings defense this week as well. I think Minnesota Vikings pass catchers that aren't named Keenan Allen have a big game today. But I think that the Chicago Bears, they probably end up losing this game to the Minnesota Vikings, even though it's at home at Soldier Field. The Chicago Bears have they've just been sad to watch these past few weeks. I'm sorry to say that to my Bears fans, but I think the Vikings end up coming out on top today. They're getting a lot more healthier as the season has been progressing. Like I said, I think the running backs are going to have a big game for the Minnesota Vikings. So I'm all in on the Vikings today. So far, like I said, we've got Houston. We've got Minnesota with their money lines. Moving on to Dallas at Washington. I think that the Commanders, even though Jaden Daniels is a little bit banged up right now, the Commanders should have an easy runaway victory with this here. The Dallas Cowboys, of course, as I always say, the Cowboys play to their competition. If they're playing a shit team, they're going to get the shit beat out of them. But when the Dallas Cowboys are playing a good team, the Dallas Cowboys end up surprising a lot of people. They're just a play to their competition type of team. I think the Cowboys don't get absolutely blown out in this game. I don't think the spread should be more than 3 points in this game, but I do think the Washington Commanders end up coming out on top in this game. So if you're keeping track, like I said, we got the Texans, we got the Chicago Bears, we got the Commanders money lines right now. Moving on to Kansas City at Carolina, we're starting Patrick Mahomes this week. I told you guys in the startums and situms, it's crazy that we have to say we're starting Patrick Mahomes this week, but Patrick Mahomes has not been playing like the Patrick Mahomes that you drafted. Like I told you not to draft inside of the first 3 rounds. You're looking at quarterbacks getting drafted between rounds 5 and 10. Being over the top of Patrick Mahomes right now. Patrick Mahomes has not been performing like that number 1 quarterback, that top 3 draft pick that you used. And I warned you about it this year, but Patrick Mahomes has a great game today against Carolina. Isaiah Pacheco is returning this week, so you're looking at him possibly getting a lot of attention in garbage time. I don't know if Isaiah Pacheco gets involved very early in this game, but I think that the Chiefs should have a lead fairly early, and we'll spend most of the game running out the clock and trying to get Isaiah Pacheco, kind of get the wheels back underneath him. I got the Kansas City Chiefs winning this game by at least 6. Moving on to New England at Miami, you're looking at the Miami Dolphins. They should have an easy game against this Patriots team, but this Patriots team has been getting tougher and tougher and tougher throughout the season. So if you're looking at taking an underdog pick with this in this week's parlay, I'm thinking the Patriots might be one of the top underdogs that I'm looking at in this week's money line. I do think that the Dolphins still end up on top with getting Tua back healthy, with getting Tyreek, everybody all back in on the field at the same time. I think that the Dolphins are going to be hard to control, especially in their running game today. But like I said, I think the Patriots, if you're looking at taking an underdog, the Patriots should have a really good chance at beating this favored Dolphins team this week. Moving on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New York Giants, which everybody is expecting to be an absolute dog walking of the New York Giants. They have a backup quarterback in Tommy DeVito. They've just cut Daniel Jones. So you're really looking at the New York Giants not really having much to look forward to in this game besides a beatdown. Mike Evans is returning. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers running backs go absolutely crazy today. We're taking that Tampa Bay money line as well today. I mean, if you're looking at the spread, I think it might be more financially reasonable for you to take the spread. You might get more money off of taking the spread versus taking the money line because everybody is expecting the Buccaneers to beat down on the Giants today. Moving on to the game that we talked about opening up the show, the Detroit Lions at the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to spend a lot of time in this game down, and Anthony Richardson is going to have to throw the ball. As a Colts fan, I almost am excited about this. When we know this coming into the game, what has our game plan been for Anthony Richardson? We're not going to be able to run as well with this Detroit Lions defense being a top 5 rushing defense. Jonathan Taylor should still be Jonathan Taylor, but I'm not expecting a 100-yard rushing game from JT. But I do think that you're looking at Josh Downs getting over 49 receiving yards. I do think that Anthony Richardson is going to have to throw more than 175 passing yards. And if Anthony Richardson could scamper for 25 to 40 yards rushing, that would be great as well. But I don't think that that should be the game plan coming into today's game. I think the Indianapolis Colts ultimately end up losing this game if we're looking at it with our money. But like I said, if you're looking at taking a part of this Indianapolis Colts, because you can win a lot of money off of the Indianapolis Colts if they play well today. So I'm taking the Indianapolis Colts spread if I can in my parlays today. If you're looking at a degenerate parlay where you're really trying to break the bank and you're really trying to blow the doors off on Black Friday, you're looking at that Colts spread being the most financially responsible thing to do when it comes to betting on that Detroit Lions, Indianapolis Colts money line. Because taking the money line for the Detroit Lions at this point, you're really not getting much in your favor. Moving on to the afternoon games, we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about the afternoon games. First and foremost, there's only 3 of them, but we also don't have a ton of the injury information for those games yet. So you're looking at the Denver Broncos traveling to the Raiders, taking them on in Las Vegas. Like I've told you guys for weeks, I'm a believer right now. You're looking at Bo Nix. He's averaging, 21.5 points over the last 7 games. He's thrown 6 touchdowns and no interceptions over the last 2 games. And you've got a really weak Las Vegas Raiders defense. So I definitely think that the Broncos have a really good game today. I'm excited to see what Bo Nix is going to do today. I think if you're looking at Bo Nix's over-under on his rushing and receiving yards, I think it's at 253 rushing and passing yards. I think it's at 253 right now. So I definitely would take a look at that Bo Nix money line or Bo Nix prop right there on the rushing and passing yards combined for that over 253. He's going to have an easy game against the Raiders. This should be a tune-up game, and the Broncos really should be able to get things going in all facets of this game. Moving on to the next game we're talking about is going to be the Cardinals versus the Seahawks. We're going to be, of course, talking about Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr. For the remainder of the season to see if Marvin Harrison Jr. at the end of the season, as you start to get settled in with this playbook, as the team stays healthy, because they had some health issues early on in the season, will Marvin Harrison kind of remain a top 24 wide receiver going into next year? When you're looking at how this offense has looked, when you're looking at how Marvin Harrison has looked, he's been playing well, but very quietly, not as he's not been meeting the hype that we had for him at the beginning of this year. But you're looking at this Arizona Cardinals Seattle Seahawks game being, I think, the most tightly contested game in the odds when you're looking at your sports books there. I think the Arizona Cardinals Seahawks game is going to come down to the wire, but ultimately I think the Arizona Cardinals, with their offensive firepower, with the rushing ability from Kyler Murray, is going to have the easier route to victory in this game. You're looking at DK Metcalf, going to be really having a hard time in this game against a tough matchup, which I think is going to open up players like Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba. But we've seen how the Seahawks have had to perform when they've had to rely on those two as their top 2 wide receivers. I just think that the Seahawks, the only way the Seahawks really win this game today is the Cardinals making a lot of mistakes and shooting themselves in the foot. If the Cardinals play like they're supposed to play and they play like we all expect them to on paper, I think the Arizona Cardinals have a good game this week. The Arizona defense has been playing well, and I think that's going to be the key factor in this game. Last afternoon game is probably going to be the most interesting game that we can watch today on paper. It's going to be that San Francisco 49ers at Green Bay Packers. There was a lot more interest in this game going in before we knew that Brock Purdy was going to be missing today's game. So we're staying away from Brock Purdy. Obviously, he's not going to be starting in today's game. So you're looking at that San Francisco 49ers offense potentially going to be able to struggle. I do want to make it a point to mention, though, I still do have belief in George Kittle today. You're looking at George Kittle breaking the tight end record for receptions and receiving touchdowns amongst tight ends with backup quarterbacks. So George Kittle does not need to rely on Brock Purdy to get his attention. Actually, they're looking at those backup quarterbacks most likely going to need to rely on George Kittle for those short dump offs if it's not Christian McCaffrey. So I think that George Kittle has a big game today. I think Christian McCaffrey has to have a big game today. But other than that, that San Francisco 49ers offense is kind of scary today. Deebo Samuel has been barely playable up until this point. He's wide receiver 41, I believe, at this current moment. And you're looking at Brock Purdy not being there. How does Deebo Samuel fit into this offense today? It's going to be very interesting to see. I'm taking that Packers money line, and you're looking at a lot of bettors hammering that Packers money line just due to the fact that Brock Purdy is going to be missing today's game. Now let's move on to some of this injury information really quick. I'm trying to run through things real fast for you for these injuries because, of course, we're going to go through the ones that are very fantasy relevant. Some of these defensive players that we will talk about will be fantasy relevant because the players they will be matched up with on offense, like the Dallas Cowboys, Trayvon Diggs is designated as out today, which is going to leave his matchup fairly uncontested today, because when you have somebody playing against Trayvon Diggs, you kind of temper your expectations a little bit. But now I'm thinking that with Trayvon Diggs being out this week, the Dallas Cowboys are going to have yet another player on defense that they're missing out on. The Dallas Cowboys are going to struggle just that much more, and I think Terry McLaurin has a bigger game now because of it. When we look on that Commander side of the ball, really nobody much. You have Jeff Driscoll, the emergency third quarterback, but nobody really missing from this matchup. Like I said, on the Cowboys, you got Trayvon Diggs, Jake Ferguson. It's really the only one that we're really talking about here, but you weren't really thinking about starting Jake Ferguson anyway. Next matchup, Minnesota Vikings at Chicago Bears. Tight end Josh Oliver is going to be out, but nobody was really worried about that. It doesn't look like really any surprises in the Bears offense or even on their defense that are going to be out in today's game. In the New England Patriots Miami Dolphins game, you're looking at wide receiver KJ Osborne being out for the New England Patriots. On the other side of the ball, Jeff Wilson Jr. is designated as out for the Miami Dolphins. But other than that, D. Eskridge, wide receiver, if you're in a deep league, might have been somebody that you had on your radar, but D. Eskridge really isn't going to be somebody that's going to impact your fantasy football lineups today. So far, it's looking like not too many surprising injuries besides that Brock Purdy injury that came on earlier in the week. In that Tennessee Titans Houston Texans matchup, running back Tyjae Spears is going to be out yet again this week, which will leave Tony Pollard a little bit more open, have a little bit more opportunity. However, this Houston Texans running defense is pretty tough and hard to deal with. On the other side of the ball with the Houston Texans, they're missing cornerback Jeff Okudah, which may leave open Calvin Ridley a little bit more today. I think Calvin Ridley does have a big game before knowing Jeff Okudah was out. But the Houston Texans can't take many losses in their secondary right now. Missing one of their best defensive backs is going to be big for the Houston Texans today. In that Kansas City Chiefs Carolina Panthers game, doesn't look like really anybody's going to be missing out of that. You got Jalen Coker missing from the Panthers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire missing for the Chiefs. Other than that, everybody's still looking fairly in good health there. Same thing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New York Giants. No Giants being designated as out thus far into the game. Malik Neighbors is going to be playing. As far as the Buccaneers, just a couple of defensive linemen tackled. Tristan Wirfs is going to be missing, which may be big for their run game. But I think that this Carolina Panthers team could not stop the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from fighting out of a wet paper bag today. So the Buccaneers should go absolutely crazy. In that Lions versus Indianapolis Colts, doesn't look like the Detroit Lions are missing really anybody. They're missing linebacker Al-Qadim Muhammad, who came from the Indianapolis Colts, so that kind of sucks for him. But Colts designated as out. Will Mallory is going to be out. Bernard Ryman, the tackle, is going to be out again, which will just only hurt the Indianapolis Colts rushing attack more than it already does. But nobody really surprising. Honestly, in these morning games, we're looking really good. The Denver Broncos are missing wide receiver Josh Reynolds. That's going to be it. Arizona Cardinals not really missing anybody in that matchup. Now in that Niners versus Packers matchup is where we really start to see a lot of these big losses. Brock Purdy's out. Nick Bosa is out. Charvarius Ward is out for the San Francisco 49ers. So today might be a tough day for that San Francisco 49ers defense. Now on the other side of the ball, the Green Bay Packers missing their best cornerback, best defensive player, Jair Alexander, the captain of their defense. Right now in that Philadelphia Eagles, Los Angeles Rams matchup, you're looking at Devontae Smith being out thus far, and that's really the only information that we've gotten from that afternoon game. Like I said, we'll get that lineup advice at least 90 minutes before kickoff. Make sure that you follow the Huddle Chat Sports Show on Facebook and on Twitter, otherwise known as X, at the Huddle Chat. We will post the injury information with at least 90 minutes before kickoff. I also want to let you guys know, as the NFL and fantasy football season start to wind to a close, we are going to continue things going this year throughout the fantasy football huddle, the Huddle Chat Sports Network, the High Roller Huddle. Really, all of the Huddle Chat Sports is going to continue to go here. And we're really going to focus on these parlays, on these bets. So make sure that if you have a friend that's always missing out on his bets, if you have a friend that's always asking you for some locks that you can put in this week, make sure you direct them over here to the Huddle Chat Sports Network, because we are going to be starting to getting more into the bets in the off season as we get into football, or as we get into basketball, baseball, more of the UFC. We've been doing it a little bit this year so far, especially on these live episodes. But like I said, once we kind of run out of fantasy football stuff to talk about, as you get into your fantasy football playoffs, we will continue things going. We're going to continue it with a new basketball show this year. We're going to keep things going with the betting shows on the High Roller Huddle as well. So make sure you keep in touch with the Huddle Chat Sports Network. Now, without further ado, let's kind of start getting prepared for that Christmas shopping season by putting in some parlays that can buy your girl or your kids some presents this year. Now, we got a couple of different parlays going on today. I'm trying to pull it up for you guys here. In this first one, we're going to have a 7-leg parlay. These are all going to be on player props. This 7-leg parlay is going to turn $10 into $450 for you today and get you guys right. Starting off with Devon Achane, over 104.5 rushing and receiving yards. You're looking at this New England Patriots defense really letting running backs do whatever they want to. You're looking at Devon Achane being heavily involved in the passing and running game on this offense, and that number seems high, and that's the scariest line on this parlay today. But you're looking at Devon Achane going to be able to do whatever he wants against this New England Patriots defense. In that same matchup, I have quarterback Drake May for the New England Patriots going over 215.5 passing yards. Drake May has been absolutely dominating it and helping out our parlays in big ways in these last few weeks, and I'm going to continue to ride the Drake May train and keeping him up with that 215.5 passing yards. In the next morning game, we're going to be looking at Brian Robinson Jr. running for over 60 yards against the worst rushing defense in the league in the Dallas Cowboys. Brian Robinson Jr. and that Washington Commanders offense, with having Jaden Daniel a little banged up, are going to need to lean on Brian Robinson Jr. and their running back production a lot more today than they typically have to when it comes to their matchups. But like I said, they're also playing the worst rushing defense in the league in the Dallas Cowboys. Brian Robinson Jr., 60 yards, seems like one of the easiest lines on this parlay. You're looking at Bucky Irving going over 57.5 rushing yards in today's matchup against the New York Giants. As we've talked about, that New York Giants is allowing running backs to do whatever they want. You're looking at Bucky Irving being heavily involved in this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. And I think that 1-2 punch of Bucky Irving, Rachaad White, is going to be all over NFL Red Zone today. I'm taking Bucky Irving's over 57.5 rushing yards. We're going next with Jahmyr Gibbs from the Detroit Lions against the Indianapolis Colts, going over 66.5 rushing yards. You're looking at the Indianapolis Colts being extremely generous to running backs all season long. The Indianapolis Colts have allowed running backs to run over 100 yards in at least 6 of their 11 games this far this season. So Jahmyr Gibbs going over 66.5, being one of the spark plugs of the Detroit Lions offense, should be very easy today. You're also looking at Aaron Jones for the Minnesota Vikings going over 60 total rushing and receiving yards against that Chicago Bears defense. As we said, this Chicago Bears defense is pretty decent, but they are a bottom 8 team against running backs per game when it comes to a rushing yards standpoint. And then the last parlay, as we talked about Patrick Mahomes earlier in the matchup, and he hasn't been performing like Patrick Mahomes. I think it's going to be almost impossible for Patrick Mahomes to not play like himself today against this Carolina Panthers defense. Give me Patrick Mahomes going over 253.5 rushing and passing yards in that lineup today. Like I said, that 7-man parlay will give you $450 off of $10 in in your sports books today. Now, moving on to my anytime touchdown parlay. I got a 6-man anytime touchdown parlay only on the morning games for you, so you can get your money early and even put in another bet if you would like to, that we'll be talking about later on in the afternoon when we drop off that afternoon game injury information. We're going with David Montgomery, anytime touchdown score. You're looking at David Montgomery being almost guaranteed to score a touchdown in any game. Now he's playing the Indianapolis Colts with that weak-ass rushing defense, and David Montgomery is getting in that end zone today. You're also looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown scoring 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. You're looking at the Indianapolis Colts. Kenny Moore is on the slot, and Amon-Ra does not play out of the slot. Amon-Ra should have a big game today as a spark plug for this Detroit Lions offense. We're taking Amon-Ra to score a touchdown as well in that matchup. In the New England Patriots Miami Dolphins matchup today, we're taking Tyreek Hill to score a touchdown. You're looking at him playing better and better since Tua Tagovailoa has gotten back. The New England Patriots defense has a lot of holes in their secondary. You're looking at Tyreek Hill getting in that end zone today, chucking up the deuces. I'm also going Brian Robinson Jr. against the Dallas Cowboys, against the worst rushing defense in the NFL, getting in the end zone and finding pay dirt as well. And maybe the easiest line in this touchdown parlay will be Kareem Hunt against the Carolina Panthers. He might even score 2 or 3 touchdowns today, but Kareem Hunt is finding pay dirt today against that Carolina Panthers offense. That 6-man touchdown parlay, $10 turns into $300 for you. So I just took $20 in those 2 parlays and turned them into $750. If you follow, let me know, because you know we're going to be talking about it when we win. But ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at 10-10. We've got all the injury information out of the way. We've got all the lineup advice out of the way. Doesn't look like anybody has any questions at the current moment on their lineups this week. I thank you guys so much for all the love and support that I've gotten from you this season, and that we continue to get as we grow and make the Huddle Chat Sports Network bigger and better every single week. Thank y'all so much for your love and support. I'm going to get up out of here, start getting prepared for my Sunday, and I wish you great luck in your Sunday, whether it's your fantasy football lineup, whether it's your parlays, whether it's your NFL team, unless you're playing against me in fantasy or you're a Detroit Lions fan, because fuck you both. Anyway, guys, I'm going to get up out of here. Y'all have a great one. Make sure, as always, to keep your chin up and your attitude down, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out. Thank you.